Imagine walking through the glittering glass doors of a 50-story tower in downtown Houston, Texas, at the dawn of the 21st century. Inside this architectural marvel sits a trading floor so technologically advanced it resembles a NASA mission control center. Wall-to-wall digital screens flicker with real-time ticker symbols, broadcasting the flow of energy, broadband bandwidth, weather futures, and paper pulp across the globe. Employees stride through the corridors wearing tailored suits, celebrating multi-million-dollar bonuses, and driving lease-backed Ferraris paid for by the company. This was Enron, the undisputed poster child of modern American capitalism, named by Fortune magazine as the most innovative company in America for 6 consecutive years. It was lauded by economists, praised by politicians, and trusted by millions of everyday retail investors who poured their life savings into its stock. Yet, behind this dazzling facade of hypermodern financial genius lay a fundamental truth that almost no one on Wall Street dared to ask out loud. Nobody actually understood how Enron was making its money. To understand how a $70 billion corporate titan unravels into complete dust, you have to go back to its quiet beginnings in 1985. Enron was not born as a high-flying tech darling or a Wall Street trading house. It began as a sleepy, traditional pipeline company formed by the merger of Houston Natural Gas and Internorth. At the helm was Kenneth Lay, a soft-spoken economist with a doctorate from the University of Houston and a deep belief in the power of free markets. In the late 1980s, the United States federal government began deregulating the natural gas market, stripping away price controls and breaking up state-sanctioned monopolies. For an ordinary pipeline company, this deregulation presented a terrifying wave of price volatility. But for Ken Lay and a new breed of ambitious executives, it looked like the ultimate gold rush. Lay envisioned transforming a dull business that simply pumped gas through underground steel pipes into something unprecedented, a financial supermarket for energy. Enter Jeffrey Skilling, a brilliant, relentlessly arrogant McKinsey consultant with a degree from Harvard Business School who possessed a radical vision for the future of commodities. Skilling convinced Lay that Enron shouldn't just physically deliver natural gas, it should create a revolutionary financial marketplace where natural gas was bought and sold like stocks, bonds, or foreign currencies. Skilling called this concept the gas bank. If a factory owner needed a guaranteed supply of natural gas at a fixed price 5 years into the future, Enron would write the contract. If a gas producer wanted to sell their output decades in advance to secure funding, Enron would lock in the trade. By stepping into the middle of every transaction, Enron took on the market risk and charged a hefty fee for doing so. Almost overnight, Enron transitioned from an old economy infrastructure firm into a high-octane financial derivative casino. The gas bank was an undisputed commercial success, but Skilling was far from satisfied. He wanted Enron to operate with complete freedom from traditional accounting constraints. In 1992, Skilling persuaded the Securities and Exchange Commission to grant Enron permission to use an accounting method known as mark-to-market accounting for its trading operations. In standard accounting, a company records revenue when it actually receives cash from a customer over time. But under mark-to-market accounting, a company can estimate the total projected net profit of a long-term 20-year contract and book every single dollar of that estimated future profit as current income on the exact day the deal is signed. If the actual revenues fell short of those wildly optimistic estimates years down the road, Enron was supposed to take a loss on its books. But inside Enron, taking a loss was treated as an act of treason. Mark-to-market accounting opened a financial trapdoor that forever altered Enron's DNA. The moment an executive signed a deal, whether it was a power plant in India, a water utility in the United Kingdom, or a high-speed fiber optic network, they immediately booked tens of millions of dollars in instant profit on the company's current income statement. Executives received massive cash bonuses based entirely on these paper projections before the ink on the contracts was even dry. But because those profits existed only as computer entries rather than actual cash flowing into bank accounts, Enron faced a growing, terrifying cash flow deficit. The company was rapidly growing on paper while quietly hemorrhaging actual liquidity behind the scenes. To keep the illusion alive, Enron was forced to sign bigger, riskier, and more speculative deals every single quarter just to generate the theoretical paper profits required to cover the shortfall of the previous ones. To sustain this high-wire act, Skilling engineered a hyper-competitive internal corporate culture that actively stripped away moral and ethical boundaries. He instituted a ruthless employee evaluation program known as the Performance Review Committee, colloquially referred to by employees as rank and yank. Every single year, employees were evaluated on a forced curve where the top 20% received exorbitant bonuses, while the bottom 15% were publicly humiliated and systematically fired within weeks. This pressure cooker created an environment of cutthroat paranoia, where long-term sustainability was discarded in favor of short-term quarterly stock pumps. Dealmakers were incentivized to sign contracts at any cost, knowingly inflating profit projections because they knew they would collect their bonuses and move on to another division before the reality of the bad investment ever caught up with them. While Skilling managed the culture and the trading operations, the financial architecture designed to keep the crushing debt hidden fell to a young, ambitious executive named Andrew Fastow. As Chief Financial Officer, Fastow was tasked with solving a seemingly impossible math problem. How could Enron borrow billions of dollars in real cash to fund its operations without showing that debt on its public balance sheet, which would trigger a credit rating downgrade and destroy its stock price? Fastow's solution was a labyrinthine web of off-balance sheet entities known as special purpose entities, or SPEs, bearing esoteric code names like Chuko, LJM, and Raptor. These entities were legally separate partnerships run by Fastow himself, allowing Enron to engage in a continuous cycle of financial self-dealing. Here is how the financial illusion worked in practice. When Enron made a disastrous investment, such as a failing broadband network or an underperforming overseas power facility, it could not afford to write off the asset and report a loss to Wall Street. Instead, Fastow would arrange for Enron to sell the toxic, declining asset to one of his secret special purpose entities at an artificially inflated price. Enron would book a massive profit on the sale, erasing the loss from its public books. But the SPE didn't actually have independent capital to buy these assets. The deals were secretly backed and guaranteed by Enron's own skyrocketing stock. Enron was effectively issuing guarantees against its own equity to clear its own bad investments off its balance sheet, creating an inescapable circular bubble. So long as Enron's stock price kept rising, the SPEs remained solvent, and the debt remained invisible to auditors, rating agencies, and public shareholders. By the late 1990s, Enron had convinced Wall Street that it possessed a magic touch, expanding its speculative empire into broadband bandwidth trading and weather derivatives. When California deregulated its electricity market in 2000, Enron Energy Services jumped at the opportunity to exploit the system. Enron traders in Houston discovered structural loopholes in California's power grid that allowed them to manipulate supply and demand on a massive scale. Traders staged artificial energy shortages by ordering power plants to shut down for scheduled maintenance during peak summer heat waves. They intentionally created bottleneck congestion on transmission lines, artificially driving up wholesale electricity prices from $40 per megawatt hour to over $1,000. As rolling blackouts plunged California cities into darkness, traffic lights failed, and hospital generators kicked in, Enron traders recorded taped phone calls laughing about the chaos and boasting about extracting millions of dollars from ordinary ratepayers. While California burned, Enron's reported stock price peaked at over $90 per share in August 2000, pushing the company's market valuation past $70 billion. Top executives began quietly cashing out hundreds of millions of dollars in personal stock options, while publicly reassuring the market that the stock was headed for $150. But under the hood, the entire enterprise was reaching its absolute breaking point. When the dot-com bubble burst in late 2000, Enron's ambitious broadband trading division completely collapsed, leaving the company with hundreds of millions in worthless infrastructure assets. Worse still, because the overall stock market was declining, Enron's share price began to slide. The falling stock price threatened to trigger deadly contractual clauses inside Fastow's special purpose entities. If Enron's stock fell below specific threshold prices, the SPEs would lose their collateral, forcing billions of dollars of hidden debt back onto Enron's main balance sheet overnight. The first public hairline fracture in Enron's pristine facade appeared in March 2001, when a sharp-eyed financial journalist named Bethany McLean published a brief article in Fortune magazine titled, "Is Enron Overpriced?" McLean pointed out a stark, undeniable anomaly. Despite Enron's soaring valuation and complex financial statements, no analyst could clearly explain how the company actually generated real cash flow. When McLean pressed Jeffrey Skilling for answers, the CEO lost his temper, calling her unethical and ignorant. Weeks later, during an official Wall Street earnings conference call in April 2001, a hedge fund manager named Richard Grubman politely asked why Enron was the only major financial firm unable to release a standard balance sheet alongside its earnings report. Skilling, growing increasingly defensive under the mounting pressure, muttered an insult into his open microphone that echoed across Wall Street. "Thank you very much, asshole." The mask was slipping rapidly. Behind closed doors, Skilling knew that the falling stock price was about to detonate Fasto's Raptor partnerships, exposing a multi-billion-dollar accounting black hole that no amount of creative bookkeeping could patch over. In a move that shocked the business world, Jeffrey Skilling abruptly resigned as CEO in August 2001, citing vague personal reasons after spending less than 6 months in the top post. He dumped tens of millions of dollars of his personal Enron holdings and retreated from public life. Kenneth Lay stepped back into the CEO role, issuing glowing internal memos to reassure panicked employees that the company was in its strongest financial shape ever, even encouraging staff to invest their retirement savings into company stock. Unbeknownst to the public, a vice president of corporate development named Sharon Watkins was examining the internal books and realizing that the company was heading toward guaranteed catastrophic failure. In August 2001, Watkins drafted a famous, urgent whistleblower memorandum directly to Ken Lay. She laid out the mechanics of Fasto's off-balance sheet partnerships and warned him in stark, uncompromising terms. "I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals." Watkins detailed how the Raptor entities were vastly undercapitalized and warned that if the SEC investigated these self-dealing arrangements, the company's financial reporting would crumble. Lay received the memo, promised to conduct an internal review, and promptly hired Enron's own legal counsel to investigate whether Watkins could be legally terminated, all while doing nothing to fix the underlying fraud. The final dominoes fell with terrifying speed in the fall of 2001. On October 16, 2001, Enron released its third-quarter financial earnings report, shocking Wall Street by announcing a massive $618 million net loss. Tucked deep inside the press release was an even more destructive bombshell. Enron was quietly writing down shareholder equity by $1.2 billion, a direct result of unwinding Fasto's failing Raptor partnerships. Days later, the Securities and Exchange Commission launched a formal investigation into Enron's accounting practices and Fasto's personal conflicts of interest. Panic tore through the financial community. Shares of Enron collapsed from $40 to under $10 in a matter of days as institutional investors rushed for the exits. As the SEC stepped in, panic gripped the offices of Arthur Andersen, the prestigious 80-year-old accounting firm responsible for auditing Enron's financial statements. Realizing that their auditors had signed off on years of fraudulent balance sheets while collecting tens of millions in lucrative consulting fees, Andersen personnel in Houston embarked on a desperate, illegal cover-up. Employees worked around the clock, feeding tons of internal Enron audit documents and electronic records into paper shredders until federal agents finally ordered them to halt. The document destruction failed to save the accounting firm. Arthur Andersen was later indicted for obstruction of justice, leading to the total destruction of one of the world's largest public accounting firms and wiping out 85,000 jobs worldwide. By late November 2001, Enron was running out of operational cash. Its credit rating was downgraded to junk status, forcing lenders to demand immediate repayment of billions in outstanding loans. A last-ditch rescue effort by a smaller rival pipeline firm, Dynegy, fell apart when Dynegy's team examined Enron's true financial ledgers and fled from the toxic balance sheet. On December 2, 2001, Enron officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. At the time, it was the largest corporate bankruptcy in human history, wiping out over $70 billion in market capitalization and instantly erasing thousands of jobs and pensions. The human cost of Enron's destruction was immediate and devastating. Over 20,000 employees lost their jobs overnight, packed their belongings into cardboard boxes, and walked out of the Houston skyscraper to face total financial ruin. Because Enron had aggressively encouraged, and in some cases locked, employees into holding company stock within their 401k retirement plans, thousands of mid-level workers lost their entire life savings in a matter of weeks. Retirees who had dedicated 30 years of service to the company watched their multi-million-dollar pension funds dissolve into mere pennies, while top executives walked away with tens of millions in cash bonuses, stock sales, and golden parachutes extracted just months before the filing. The legal fallout echoed through the federal justice system for years. Andrew Fasto cooperated with prosecutors, pleading guilty to fraud and serving over 5 years in federal prison while forfeiting tens of millions in illicit assets. In 2006, after an exhaustive 4-month trial, a jury found both Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling guilty of multiple counts of conspiracy, fraud, and insider trading. Lay died of a heart attack shortly after the verdict while awaiting sentencing, leaving his conviction legally vacated under federal precedent. Jeffrey Skilling was sentenced to over 24 years in federal prison, serving more than 12 years before his release. The collapse of Enron permanently reshaped the global financial, regulatory, and corporate landscape, leading directly to the passage of the landmark Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. This legislation introduced strict personal liability for corporate officers regarding financial reports, imposed rigid independence rules on external auditors, and criminalized the destruction of financial records. But beyond regulatory reforms, the Enron story stands as an enduring, timeless warning about the limits of financial engineering and the corrupting nature of unbridled corporate arrogance. It proved that no matter how complex the financial structures, how brilliant the executives, or how towering the glass skyscrapers appear, a company that prioritizes paper illusions over fundamental value is nothing more than a house of cards waiting for the inevitable gust of wind.